Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I've got a new background here. And actually, the TV in the background is temporary. I'll be taking out this. Sorry, hold on here. Hold on. Let me get another drink of coffee. I need to get on my game tonight. Anyways, Shabbat Shalom. Let me try this again. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So glad to be here. I'm actually down in Central Florida right now. We're down here visiting some friends. And I'm beginning of my 10th anniversary in the year on the Gregorian calendar in Florida trip. We come down here every year, 10th year, down here for 3 months, be here through January. If you recall last year, I was getting a hotel room every Friday night because we are going to be out on the beach. You know, the beach is just a wild and crazy place for the Wi-Fi. Might do that this year. I don't know. It's going to be a bit of an experiment tonight. If it doesn't work out, hopefully I'm not going to be choppy for you guys. If I am, please do let me know. And yeah, hopefully it's going to go down without a hitch tonight, but you know how these things go. Anyways, yeah, let's get going on it. The Fire That Consumes. Now, I will give a quick shout out to Edward Fudge, because if I don't, somebody else will. And he wrote a book called The Fire That Consumes. And in that book, The Fire That Consumes, he talked about annihilationism, which I'm going to be talking about tonight as well. And if you recall, here's the table of contents of all we're going to go through tonight. So a lot to touch on. Now, if you do recall last week or any time in Deuteronomy, I said that when we roll back the Torah, it took a year to go through Genesis through Deuteronomy, which is very intense process, though very insightful. I said that when we roll back the scroll again and go back to Genesis chapter 1, I'm going to take my time. I'm not good. I mean, the first week is a nightmare. That would have been last week. I would have had to get from Genesis chapter 1 through Genesis chapter 6. And just, you can imagine all the things that you cover in there. Well, I only covered verse 1. I wasn't even on day 1 of creation yet last week. And I'm going to be jumping around a little bit tonight. Over the next few weeks. Tonight, we're also not on day 1 of creation. And you will see why in just a moment. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to play for you guys. Hopefully this downloaded. Here we go.
The first book of Moses, Bereshith, chapter 1, first creation by Elohim. In the former time periods, as a powerful sign of working, chief son and heir Elohim filled with choice things, behold, as a sign Shemayim, the place of the names, and behold, as a sign, Aratz, the chief place of running. But observe how Aratz was unorganized and empty, and Sheshach rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach, Elohim, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters. Elohim then declared, light he will exist, and light he will exist. And Elohim gazed upon that beautiful light, and Elohim made distinctive the light from the darkness. And to the light, Elohim called out the name Ya'um. And to the darkness he called out the name Leah Laha. This was the close and the dawn of the first age. Elohim also declared, he will exist, Rakuyah, between the waters, and let it be a division between the waters and the waters. And Elohim fashioned the Rakuyah, and it divided the waters which were above the Rakuyah. The hammered out expanse, and it was done. And Elohim called out the hammer out expanse Hashemayim. This was the close and the dawn of the second age. Elohim then commanded, let the waters below Hashemayim be collected in one place, and let dry land appear, and that was done. And Elohim called out the dry land Aratz, and the accumulated waters he named Yamayim, seas, and Elohim admired their beauty. Elohim then declared, let the Haaretz produce seed-bearing vegetation, as well as fruit trees according to their several species, capable of reproducing upon the Haaretz. And that was done. The Haaretz produced the seed-bearing herbage according to every species of reproductive fruit trees, and Elohim saw that it was good. This was the close and the dawn of the third age. Elohim further declared, let there exist from lights in the firmament of Hashemayim for a distinction between the day and between the night, and let them serve for signs and for appointed times and for time periods and years, and let them also illuminate the firmament of the sky so as to give light upon Haaretz. And that was done. Elohim fashioned 2 lights from the light, the greater from light to have dominion over the day, and the smaller from light to control the night, accompanied by the stars. And Elohim had gifted them in the hammered out expanse so as to illuminate Haaretz, to have dominion over the day and to have a dominion over the night, and to mark the division between the light and the darkness. And Alayam saw they were beautiful. This was the close and the dawn of the fourth age. Alayam further declared, "Let there exist from lights in the firmament of Hashemayim for a distinction between the day and between the night, and let them serve for signs and for appointed times and for time periods and years. And let them also illuminate the firmament of the sky so as to give light upon the Ha'arats." And that was done. Alayam fashioned 2 lights from light, the greater from light to have dominion over the day, and the smaller from light to control the night, accompanied by the stars. And Alayam had gifted them in a hammered out expanse so as to illuminate Ha'arats, to have a dominion over the day, and to have dominion over the night, and to mark the division between the light and the darkness. And Alayam saw they were beautiful. This was the close and the dawn of the fourth age. Alayam then said, "Let the waters be swarming with animal life, and let winged fowl fly above Ha'arats over the face of the expanse of Hashemayim." Alayam accordingly produced the monsters of the deep, Thunuyanu, or dragons, and the waters abounded with living Nephash, swarmers, and also produced every species of winged fowl, and Alayam admired their beauty. And Alayam, he did barak them, declaring, "Be fruitful and multiply, so as to fill the waters of the deep, and also let the winged creatures multiply upon Arats." This was the close and the dawn of the fifth age. Alayam then declared, "Let Ha'arats produce living Nephash according to its species, quadrupeds, reptiles, and all wild animals answering to their species." And that was done. Alayam accordingly made the various species of the animals of Ha'arats, as well as several species of quadrupeds, and all the different species of reptiles, and Alayam admired their beauty. Creation of man under the shadow of Alayam. Alayam then declared, "Let us fashion Adam under our shadow, like our appearance, and subject to them the fish of the waters, and the winged fowl of Hashemayim, and the quadrupeds, as well as the whole of Ha'arats, and every creeping reptile that creeps upon it." So Alayam created Adam under his own shadow, creating them in the shadow of Alayam, and constituting them male and female. Alayam, as a powerful sign, he did barak them, and Alayam declared to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, so as to fill Ha'arats and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and the birds of Hashemayim, and over every living creature that moves upon Ha'arats." Alayam also declared, "See, I have given to you food of every fruit, and grain-bearing plant upon the surface of the whole Arats, as well as fruit and seed-bearing trees and all vegetation, so that they may be food for you, and for every animal of the Ha'arats, and for every winged fowl of the skies, and for every reptile upon Ha'arats, which possesses the life of animals." And it was done. And Alayam gazed upon all that he made, and it was very beautiful. Thus the close came of the sixth age. Thus Hashemayim and Ha'arats were completed, as well as their armies, and Alayam rested at the seventh age from all the works which he had made. And therefore Alayam, he did barak the seventh day, and he did kadosh it, because he then rested from all the work which Alayam had arranged to do.
And this concludes the reading of the word this week. If some of you showed up to this video and you're like, what just happened? That was the Paleo Hebrew that was put together by none other than our own Pamela here. And of course, she has translated Genesis through Deuteronomy in the Paleo, and we have that available in our store. And she has other books, Psalms, Volume 1, 2, and 3, and Song of Songs. I noticed when I was reading through here that there was, I guess I made the same mistake last week, so hopefully I'll correct it by next week. I had a paragraph, a few sentences missing there when Sean was reading, and that person reading was none other than Sean Walking Bear, for those of you who have who are recognizing the voice but not sure where it's coming from. So, last Tuesday, I gave a presentation on guardian angels. And I wanted to talk, didn't see it. If I could sum up, though, I try to take all this literature, like canon, but extra biblical books, and put them together and kind of show the roles of a guardian angel. And if I could sum up the whole thing, when I went into it, I was really under this assumption that, the idea of a guardian angel is that they're there to, keep the piano from falling on your head when you're walking down the sidewalk, right? Kind of a Roadrunner and Coyote type of situation. That's not it at all. The guardian angels are not there to guard you physically. And I know it's in the word guardian, right? They're actually there to guard your soul. The idea of a guardian angel, time and again, when I was finding in scripture, it was really overwhelming. This idea that their entire purpose and mission is to get you to repent. They want you to repent of your transgressions. Your transgressions against what? Well, the Torah. We have a law, the first 5 books of the Bible. It's there in our Bible. It's amazing how many people actually tell you to believe in the Bible and that this is God's word. But, oh, yeah, by the way, this 95% here, don't actually, that's outdated. Don't pay any attention to that. No, they may not put in those words, but that's the reality of the situation. It's pretty insane. And so you have these guardian angels that follow you around your whole life, and they're like, just repent. Just repent. How many times we keep, every day they have to go up before Yah to his throne and say, they're not repenting. They're not repenting. And so, yeah, there's that. Anyways, I'd encourage you to go back and check that out. So here's why I want to talk about the fire that consumes today. We're going through Genesis chapter 1. Last week we talked about the societies, the mankind that existed before Genesis 1-2, and showing all these, Atlantis, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, all these. I tried to take as many texts as I could in a 2-hour framework and bring them together into some sort of coherent package. I think you guys got the point. I think you guys enjoyed it. Well, there was something else that was created before the first day, and it was Gehenna. So I'm going to read from a couple of different passages. The first is the Chronicles of Jeremiah. How awesome, how badass is that? The Chronicles. Someday maybe I'll write a book called like the Chronicles of Noel or something like that. But just the very word, the Chronicles, in there. Anyways, this is what he says. With the help of God, I commenced to write this, my book, without interruption. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created on the day when Yahweh Elohim made heaven and earth. Eliezer, son of Hyrcanos, began his homily thus. Who can express all the mighty acts of God? Is there anybody who can possibly give utterance to the mighty deeds of God and proclaim all his praise? Not even the ministering angels can do this. All right, let me skip through some of this introduction and just show you this right here, or else we'll be here all night. 7 things were created prior to the creation of the world, right? So right there, he's saying before Genesis 1-2, or really before Genesis 1-1, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Before Genesis 1-1, there are 7 things to look out for. The Torah, repentance. I just talked about guardian angels. What are we supposed to repent of? Transgression of the Torah. So the Torah, repentance, the throne of glory, the Garden of Eden, Gehenna, the side of the temple, in the name of the Messiah. And for all these things, proof is to be found in the scriptures. Now, it has been stated, and this is one of the reasons, I said this last week, I said this probably the week before, it has been stated by the sages and the rabbinical community alike that the first 6 chapters of Genesis, within those 6 chapters, you can pull out every single doctrine and theme you're going to find in all of Scripture in those first 6 chapters. That's why it's a nightmare to go through it in one Torah portion. It's just a nightmare to try to cover those 6 chapters in one sermon. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about Gehenna. Now, we read this in LOTJ, Lord of the Jews, Legend of the Jews. This is what it says. In the beginning, 2,000 years before the heaven and the earth. So this is saying now we're going to go 2,000 years before even the create. And by the way, in between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, I'm one of those guys. Call me a gap theorist if you want. There was an untold number of years between. Now, I can't separate. I don't know what ends young Earth creationism and what begins old Earth creationism. My understanding is that the typical young Earth creationist believes the Earth is about 6,000 years old. That's how I was raised. Then there are the young Earth creationists who will say the Earth is about 10,000 years old, give or take 10 or 11. Okay. But then there are those who say that the Earth is like 70,000 years old. No, they're not mainstream, but they're still young Earth creationists. I'm kind of in that camp. I think I'm still officially a young Earth creationist, just not a mainstream one. The Earth could be millions of years old. I don't really know. I wasn't there. I'm not too convinced that the Earth has to be millions of years old, but I believe that there were multiple creations before our own. There were several, 3 major distinguishable ones, that we are the 3rd or the 4th, maybe the 7th. Anyway, so 2,000 years before the heaven and the earth, 7 things were created. The Torah, written with black fire on white fire. and lying in the lap of God, the divine throne erected in the heaven, which later was over the heads of the Hayut, paradise on the right side of God, hell on the left. So why is that? So why would, well, let me just finish this. The celestial sanctuary directly in front of God, having a jewel on its altar graven with the name of the Messiah, and a voice that cries aloud, return ye children of men. This is, by the way, this is Legends of the Jews, and what a beautiful picture this is given. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is purely Christian, purely revelation. I mean, think about this. You got the throne, the Father's on the throne. He's looking at the temple in heaven. To his left and to his right is hell and or Gehenna and paradise, right? Just sheep and goat, left and right, wheat and tare. You know, go under his rod, you go to paradise. You go the other way, you go into the lake of fire. And we saw last week that in all the prior creations, Allah Hayam, which is the Paleo Hebrew for God, God was unhappy with all of his creations. And why? Because he ruled them with strict justice. He is a just God. He's a righteous God. And he gives free will to his creation, and they choose a lawlessness and choose to be unrighteous. And he was just continually being sorrowful for creating them and destroying them. Finally, with this creation events, there's a change that happens, and it happens in Genesis 1 and 1:2, where the son of Elohim is revealed to the world. Of course, I believe he is Yahuwah, or that would be the Paleo, or the modern Hebrew would be Yahweh or Yahuwah or Yahweh. And this is none other than Yahushua HaMashiach, Yeshua, or some of you know him as Jesus Christos. And so it's amazing here that at this time, before the creation of the world, he puts the name of the Messiah. What is the name of the Messiah, everybody? It's Yeshua. It's salvation. He puts the name salvation there in front of him to remember the mercy that he's going to give to them with the call, return ye children of men. I will give you salvation, return to me. But if you don't, you're going to end up in Gehenna. Now, why would he create Gehenna? That's the big theological question. Why would he create Gehenna before there's a rebellion? Well, it's the basic framework of any kind of architecture. You build a castle, you're going to put a dungeon down there. You build a city, you're going to put a jail, a prison, because you know that in any kind of society, anything in society, anything you're going to build in society, there's going to be rebellion. And so he built that knowing that people are going to rebel against him. It's just what a king would do. And it says here, paradise and hell were intended to do duty as reward and punishment. And finally, the Messiah was appointed to bring salvation. It's a play on words there, guys. The Messiah was appointed to bring Yeshua, Yahushua HaMashiach, which would put an end to all sinfulness. All right. And then we read this in Genesis 3 of the Targum. And he drove out the man from thence where he had made to dwell the glory of his Shekinah, the first between the two cherubiah, or the cherubim. Before he had created the world, he created the Torah. He prepared the Garden of Eden for the righteous, that they might eat and delight themselves with the fruit of the tree, because they would have practiced in their lives the doctrine of the Torah in this world, and have maintained the commandments. But he prepared Gehenna for the wicked, which is like the sharp, consuming sword of two edges. In the midst of it, he hath prepared flakes of fire and burning coals for the judgment of the wicked, who rebelled in their life against the doctrines of the Torah. To serve the Torah is better than to eat of the fruit of the tree of life, the Torah which the word of Yahuwah prepared, that man in keeping it might continue and walk in the paths of the way of life in the world to come. Now, what I just read there was very profound, and I comment on this regularly. That you see so many people in this life, they're just like, I'm sick of this life, I'm sick of this world, I just want out of it, I just want to get to heaven. And they have this idea that there'll be some sort of like robotic, change, and all of a sudden they'll be happy, and they'll just be, like it's like, some button that Yah pushes, and now you'll be happy forever now. And look what it says here. He says that it is better to serve the Torah is better than to eat of the fruit of the tree of life. Well, what happens when we go to heaven? We eat the fruit of the tree of life. Of course, the fruit of the tree, of course, the Ruach HaKodesh is the tree of life, and the Torah is the tree of life. But I say this time and again, that if you are not happy in this life, serving the Torah and walking the path, the instructions in righteous living, if that does not bring you happiness, we need to all ask the question. I ask myself this. This is for me. It's for everybody. What makes us think we're going to be happy in eternity? What makes us think we're going to make it into eternity? I think that's a good question to ask. Now, tonight we'll be talking about, again, Gehenna and specifically annihilationism. I want to show you my conclusions that the soul itself is extinguishable. It's not eternal. The final judgment, the second death is literally death itself. It's ceasing to exist. We see this in Genesis 1 in the Aramaic Targum. It says this, and Yahweh has said, behold, I have given you every herb whose seed seedeth upon the face of all the earth, and every unfruitful tree for the need of building and for burning, and the tree in which is fruit seeding after its kind, to you it shall be for food. So right there, in a world where there has not been fallen, Adam has not fallen in sin yet. Yah created a world where there's two types of trees. There's fruit-bearing trees and non-fruit-bearing trees. Now, think about it. If you're going to build a log cabin in the woods, are you going to use an orange tree to build your log cabin? No. You're going to use pine trees. You're going to use evergreen trees. With the pine needles, they're not fruit-bearing trees, and those needles that they keep them all throughout the year. A non-fruit tree is good for two things: for using for tools, for building, or for burning. Use it for firewood. And it's a shame that we have something like Christmas trees that we bring in. That's a non-fruit bearing tree. We bring them into our house, and actually, I think that spirits do inhabit trees, and I don't think it's good in those situations. So that's what we want to be. We want to be a fruit bearing tree, and if you are a fruit bearing tree, you go on to paradise. If you are a non-fruit hold on here. If you're not a non-fruit bearing tree, you get thrown in Gehenna at the end. But as you can see here, does a tree go on for eternity? No, the tree is burned up. It goes up in smoke. The smoke rises for eternity, the smoke of the torment, but the tree is burnt up. And that's the idea that trees teach us about eternity, that only some of us will be immortal. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm so disgusted at myself that I left out the passage from Wisdom of Solomon where it straight up says that there are immortal people and mortal people, and the only immortals are those that keep the Torah. Everyone else is mortal. They die, and that's it. They die. It's over. All right? So you get thrown into the fire, up in smoke, gone. So before we get too far into this, I want to talk about Tartarus at the beginning. Now, you see here before you a picture of a phoenix rising out of the ashes. And I think that most of the people, now there's going to be the odd person who comes into the subject matter of this video with no prior history to my channel. My apologies if you don't know what I'm talking about. Most of the people who listen to me are well accustomed to Tartary and the idea of the phoenix coming out of the ashes. This is interesting here because from the Sibylline oracles, we read this right here. The King Most High, who brought into existence the whole world, saying, let there be, and there was, for he the earth established, placing it round about Tartarus, and he himself gave the sweet light. He raised the heaven on high, and then there's another line, the something or other. So this is what we read in Genesis 1:1. Did I actually put the passage here again? I'll put it again. What's the first thing we see? The opening act in Genesis 1:1 or 1:2. We see the abyss. What is the abyss, guys? It's the pathway to Sheol, to Tartary, and you see like this Chosak creature coming out of it, right? So here, Yah established the entire world around Tartarus. Now, give me a few minutes to build this case here. Now let's look at, this comes from the Book of the Two Pearls, the account of Enoch. Enoch was taken up into the heavens. Actually, let me start up here at verse 4. This is when he's ascending to heaven for the last time. After he said this, the multitude took up arms to kill him. Actually, now I'm going to have to read verse 3. Enoch went out to the multitude and said, behold, Yahweh is coming with 10,000s of his holy ones to mete out judgment to all those who are ungodly. There's another passage right there where you see interchangeable between Yeshua and Yahweh, meaning they're the same person. Yahweh is the Son. You have sinned a grievous sin and forgotten the creator of the worlds. After he said this, the multitude took up arms to kill him. Suddenly a whirlwind came from heaven as a storm of fire. Within the whirlwind of fire were seraphim, dragons of the power of Elohim. All who saw this became blind in that moment, for their eyes were burned from their sockets. I kind of imagine something from Raiders of the Lost Ark there. And of course, it's important to note here that it's, that there are real dragon spiritual entities, and these are the seraphim. The very word seraphim it denotes the fiery serpent, or fiery serpents. Enoch was then taken up into the heavens and disappeared from the land. No one knew where he went. He could not be found, for Elohim took him to an appointed place, even to a place of holy ground. In this place, Enoch wrote books about the history of his people from Adam until the time of his generation. Now, this is what I want you to look at right here. At that time, Elohim, or Elohim, showed him a vision of the great Leviathan and Behemoth, which we'll be talking about later in Genesis. These two beasts were stirring up the population in the end of days. Behemoth was a beast of liberty, and Leviathan was one of royalty and power. They began as one beast with a name called Phoenix. Of course, you see many images of Phoenix coming out of the flames with two heads. And you could say that's Leviathan and Behemoth. The Phoenix died, and from the ashes arose these two great beasts. Behemoth eventually became greater and dictated its laws to the whole earth. It attacked Ishmael continually, even when he did not deserve to be punished. Is that not like representative today, or what? Then another beast came up and awoke from a slumber. The beast was a dragon-like beast with 10 horns, returning to reclaim its two severed heads, that is, Leviathan and Behemoth. The two beasts fought for a while, but gave in afterwards. Now the dragon-like beast was again whole, and it ruled the whole earth. It placed its seal upon the multitude until one like the Son of Man came and destroyed the beast. And that's the end of his vision right there. So, of course, there's an illustration here of a behemoth and Leviathan looking very sea serpentish. So here's what I want to kind of go over this idea, this chart with you guys here. The little season and the creation week, knowing the end from the beginning. Now, I guess I would call myself a little seasonist. I believe that we are living in the little season in Revelation chapter 20. After the Millennial Kingdom came to an end, you guys know my timeline. You could look at it in my 7,000-year timeline deception video presentation, as well as Kings and Priests of the Millennial Kingdom, in which I talk about the years 500 to 1500 in the whereabouts was what I believe was the physical manifestation on this earth of the Millennial Kingdom. So that came, of course, in the conclusion of 6,000 years, meaning that the last 1,000 up to a 7,000 was the sabbatical rest. So we actually see that this being played out in the creation week. Within the recreation week model, we have the sabbatical age of 1,000 years. I put a question mark there, of rest. Saying that there was this darkness over the land. The earth was resting. Let's just say it was 1,000 years. I don't know. Maybe it was 10 minutes. I don't know. Maybe it was 15,000 years. But there was this age of rest. And then immediately what happens? It's followed by the release of an evil entity from the abyss. From where? Tartarus. Or, Narnia. As I say, Tartary. But from the abyss, from Tartarus, on day one of recreation. Well, then we fast forward, the sabbatical day of rest, the Millennial Kingdom ends around 1500-ish or whenever it ended. And then Tartarus challenges the kingdom once more, hence the little season. Now, I have yet to do a actual presentation on my conclusions on Tartary. But I think that Tartary was in league with the little season, with the Enlightenment. It was basically using Millennial Kingdom technology to create this worldwide society. And of course, there's been resets since that time, and they have since scrubbed Tartary. That's a whole different discussion. But there does seem to be a lot that lines up Tartarus. Look at this here. This is Christian Remembrancer, apparently 1861, says, "Then Tartarus shall wrap the world in gloom. High chiefs and princes shall receive their doom, eternal fire and brimstone for their tomb." There's this idea that Tartary kind of constricts and kind of grows and comes back again and comes out and goes back again every so many, within the creation week model. I'm seeing that played out. And this is what we see here in Bereshith 1:2. "But observe, Ha'aratz was unorganized and empty, and Shashak rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach Alahayam, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters." We haven't covered that yet, but you can see that right there, where from Tartarus, from this abyss, the king of Tartary, this evil entity. Maybe it is the Hasatan, maybe it's his daddy. We really don't know. But this evil entity is coming up to challenge Yahweh, his claim to the throne. And then we have this passage here. This comes from Vision of Paul. And this goes back into, if you look at the Guardian Angels video I did, and this is talking about a person who was a wicked soul who chose not to obey Yah's instructions in righteous living. In fact, he rebelled against it. And now he is being taken by his guardian angels to trial after his life. And the verdict is, "Let him therefore be handed over to the angel Tartarus, who was set over the punishments." And so this would be the prince of Tartary. Interestingly enough, too, talk about resets, we have Ham. And it says right here, "Ham presently usurped and undertook that mighty government." This is from the Travels of Noah into Europe. It's a phenomenal book, one which I want to read through online. We do sell this on the store. This was one of Rebecca's personal translations. She put a lot of months of work into this. But basically what happened is when you have the Genesis reset with Noah's flood, and Noah and his sons get off the ark, and the land, the whole earth is distributed between Noah's three sons. What Ham does is he goes around and usurps all the thrones. And he starts toppling Shem's children and Japheth's children, and we get into the Canaan trouble and all sorts of things like that. So it's interesting here that it says that Ham took on the title Le Grand Comte de Tartaria. And this is in Latin, and I tried so hard to translate this. If anybody can translate this, please do. I put the notes in here. My best attempt at this was the great vaulted arched roof of Tartaria, that he referred to himself in his letter patents. This is Ham, who is also Pan. The great vaulted arched roof of Tartaria, almost like he's the vaulted dome of Tartaria, like he's elevated himself above the very earth to the throne, like Satan. That seems to be the title that it's being conveyed there. So you tell me if you come up with a more accurate title. All right, so before we get into too much annihilationism tonight, let's talk about the soul versus the body. This is something I highlighted really quickly when I went through my soul sleep and Sheol presentation about a week and a half ago. You see how everything is kind of interlinked? I'm trying to cover a lot of different pieces of this puzzle of Genesis chapter 1. The soul is the non-material essence of a person, which includes one's identity, personality, and memories, an immaterial aspect or essence of a living being that is believed to be able to survive physical death. It is used to refer to the immaterial, spiritual, or thinking aspect of a person as contrasted with the person's physical body. Now, that definition comes from Wikipedia. If you go look at soul on Wikipedia, and I agree with this definition. When we were talking about the soul, and depending on what Greek philosopher you're into, you may come with a different understanding. But when we're talking about the actual soul as separate from the spirit, the soul survives the death of the physical body. The physical body is just the vessel, but we have a soul that continues on, that has all your memories, your very being, who you are. And of course, this soul is put down to sleep in Sheol, and it's either in torment or it's in bliss. Now, I do believe that anyone who has been saved by Yeshua has been freed from Sheol at this point in history, and they go on to some other holding cell or something else. That's a whole different discussion. But the question is, is this soul eternal or is it not? And I put forward that the soul is not immortal, it is not eternal naturally, that it can't be snuffed out like a flame on a candle and just the smoke goes up and the flame is out. It's a terrible thought. I mean, you have these individuals who mainstream Christianity out there. If you look up annihilationism, you're going to get search results in the hundreds that are conveying the opposite idea. No, you're wrong. People are going to burn for an eternity in hell and just total torment. You think about how hot, if you've ever been burned. I had an injury on my foot about almost 3 years ago now, where I was barbecuing. I was in Missouri waiting for my daughter to be born. We're living out there, and I stepped on a hot coal for like a second. I mean, I don't even know how people walk on hot coals. I stepped on this hot coal for a second. It was so excruciating. It tore up my foot, and I couldn't walk on it for like, I had a very pregnant wife. It was hard. I couldn't walk on my foot for a couple months. It was so excruciating. And so to say that, someone is for all eternity, no end, they are in fire because they didn't believe in the historical existence of Jesus Christ, his death, burial, and resurrection. Just because they didn't believe that. They could have been, according to Christian doctrine, you don't have to keep the Sabbath, you don't have to eat clean, you don't have to keep the Torah's instructions, right? It's all just this belief, right? It's this faith, not faithfulness. It's all backwards. The whole thing is backwards. Versus a momentary punishment. So here's what we read in Romans 6:23. Death itself will be thrown in the lake of fire. For the wages of sin is death, but the gracious gift of God is eternal life in Yahushua HaMashiach, our Adonai. So what is the wages of sin? It's death. Death. And of course, death is death. James or Yaakov 1:15 says this: then when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it has run its course, brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers and sisters. So before I talk about where this is going, I think that when we get to Genesis 3, when I eventually get there some months from now, and the serpent goes in front of Eve, and she says, well, if we eat from this tree, we're going to die. And he challenged this world. He's like, really going to die? You're going to, and Satan plays with the word, because he's like, you're not going to die today. You won't die today. The idea of dying is that dying, you shall die. That should be the translation of what is really happening. That day they spiritually died, and that spiritual death is leading to an ultimate death, where they will be no more. They will be snuffed out, extinguished. So where is this going? We see in Revelation 20, it says this: and the sea gave up the dead which were in it. That's kind of interesting, right? How many times do we think about the sea that has dead in it? And this would refer to the abyss, of course. And death and hell, or you could say Sheol there, and death and Sheol delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged every man according to their works. And death and Sheol were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. So right there, the very fact that it's inferring that the very holding cell where all the dead people are, that is being thrown into the lake of fire. So it's being extinguished. It's going to be done. It's going to be over. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. Revelation chapter 20. So conclusion, Sheol is only a temporary holding cell. The second death is the final destination for all, total annihilationism. And as horrible a thought it is of someone burning for an eternity without end, never a dull moment down there in the heat. There's still, I think, a hope in a lot of people's thinking that people can still be saved from that, because there's still hope, because you're still a conscious living being. You're not dead, you're just living dead, because you're still conscious. You can't say that person's dead, right? They're conscious. Their flesh is dead, but their spirit, their soul's alive. But with total annihilationism, guys, it's an irreversible, irrevocable. It's over. It's done. It's like if you are dead, exterminated, it's like you never were. You can never get that person back again. It's over. And in some ways, that's very tragic to think about. Like it makes way more sense, and it brings me comfort to know that our loved ones will not be burning for an eternity. But it also makes me sad to think that it's over for them. They can never, ever come back again. Messiah says this in Matthew chapter 10, and do not be afraid of those who kill the body but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in Gehenna. So right there, I mean, for me, that's the clincher right there. Because we know that the body dies. Now he's talking about two deaths. He's referring to the death of the soul just as he would refer to the death of a body. The body, you die, it decays, it turns to dust, it's dead, right? It's the same thing with the soul. It's like ashes. It's gone. And the soul is your memory bank, right? So your memories are now in ashes. I hope to cover this again. I covered this about a year ago, but I didn't make it into a formal video. I want to talk about Hellmouth. And I am convinced that Hellmouth is actually a thing. Of course, this was very popular in the Middle Ages, the High Middle Ages, quote unquote, the Millennial Kingdom. And the Hellmouth is treated as basically Hellmouth is Sheol, and it's a living entity that people were thrown into, just like Jonah in the fish. Same idea. And we see this really interesting scene in 3rd Baruch. He's in the third heaven. And he says, and he showed me a plain and a serpent, which appeared to be 200 plethra in length. And he showed me Hades. You could say maybe Sheol too, if you'd like. And its appearance was dark and abominable. And I said, who is this dragon and who is this monster around him? And the angel said, the dragon is he who eats the bodies of those who spend their life wickedly, and he is nourished by them. And this is Hades, which itself also closely resembles him, and that it also drinks about a cubit from the sea, which does not sink at all. You see a connection there with Behemoth and Leviathan. And I've made a big case that, Leviathan is perhaps the Hellmouth, the entryway to the abyss. And what happens to Leviathan is I'm not doing a study on Leviathan tonight, but what happens to Leviathan is he's killed, he's slain. And I think he's thrown into the barbecue. And I think it's over. So once these living entities are thrown into the lake of fire, death will be no more. All right, so let's switch topics really quickly. And let's talk about Allah Hayam, God, a consuming fire. He's the all-consuming fire. And there's something like 500 references to fire in canon, with 90 of them directly being linked to Allah Hayam, that he is a fire. So obviously, I'm not going to go over all 90 of those. You can use your imagination. I'll cover a couple. The Hebrew and Greek words translated as consuming fire mean, and feel free to challenge me on this, but the word for consuming fire means a fire that destroys or utterly consumes. Like if you are in the presence, now we all have to pass through the fire. I'll be talking about it. Every single one of us have to pass through the fire. But if you're not worthy and you're like standing for, it's just again like the ending to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like I just see, just we get blown into ashes. Like you're completely consumed. You cannot stand in front of the presence of Allah Hayam. And in fact, I think that's one of the reasons why before he comes down to the earth for the final act, the climax of the final act, all sin has to be eliminated, because they can't. It's actually his mercy that he's refraining from coming down, because once he comes down, it's gonna be fire, baby. It's gonna be all fire all the time, 24/7 down here. And I will be covering that next week when I talk about the firmament and how the realm above is fire. And that's why he created the firmament, to separate in his mercy, the fleshly people down here from the fire above. We read this in Exodus 24. The glory of Yahweh settled on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. And on the seventh day, he called to Moshe from the midst of the cloud. And to the eyes of the sons of Yasharel, the appearance of the glory of Yahweh was like a consuming fire on the mountaintop. Exodus 24. Jumping to a few chapters, about 8-10 chapters later, Exodus 32, it says this. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, I have seen this people, and behold, they are an obstinate people. So now leave me alone, that my anger may burn against them, and I may destroy them. And I will make of you a great nation. So that's all he needed to do. He needed to go down that mountain. They just want to. Now keep in mind, Moshe was in the fire, right? He came down like his face all radiant, glowing. Who else went through the fire? Abraham went through the fire. Daniel's 3 friends went through the fire. And so this is telling us that the righteous will go through the fire. But that exact same fire, that holy righteous fire that is in heaven, is going to consume all the wicked. So it shouldn't surprise any of us that Gehenna is up in heaven. Really, according to a lot of texts, the third heaven. We see this in Hebrews 12. So to it that you do not refuse him who is speaking, for if those did not escape when they refuse him who warned them on earth, much less will we escape who turn away from him who warns us from heaven. And his voice shook the earth then, but now he is promising, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heaven. This expression, yet once more, denotes the removing of those things which can be shaken as of created things, so that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. I put a note there, see Psalm 1. Therefore, since we receive a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let's grow gratitude, by which we may offer to Elohim an acceptable service with reverence and awe, for our Elohim, our God, is a consuming fire. That was a lot for me to read just to say that last line there. This is a long passage. First Enoch 10. Oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. And this is talking about once you get above the firmament, and it's fire 24/7 up there. And of course, the only way to go up to heaven is to be translated. This is why Enoch was able to go. Abraham, Moshe, those individuals went up there. They were translated. Adam at one point. And the vision was shown to me thus. Behold, in the vision, clouds invited me, and a mist summoned me, and the course of the stars and the lightning sped and hastened me. And the winds in the vision caused me to fly and lifted me upward and bore me into heaven. And I went in till I drew nigh to a wall which is built of crystals. I believe that this wall that it's talking about here is the firmament. And it was surrounded by tongues of fire, and it began to affright me. And I went into the tongues of fire and drew nigh to a large house, which was built of crystals. So now he's standing on top. Now, he could have already passed through the firmament. This wall of crystal could be an actual wall on top. I don't know. I wasn't there. He didn't talk about going through the firmament right here. I think that is what it is. So now he's on top, and now he is going into this how did he call it? He said a large house, which was built of crystals. And the walls of the house were like a tessellated floor made of crystals, and its groundwork was of crystal. Its ceiling was like the path of the stars and the lightnings, and between them were fiery cherubim, and their heaven was clear as water. A flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its portals blazed with fire. And I entered into that house, and it was hot as fire and cold as ice. That's actually very profound there. They're talking about the fire and the ice. That's something I want to talk about in future weeks, about all the apocalyptic visions where they sound very conflicting, because some people talk about they see fire and sometimes they see ice. And ice in the in Sheol kind of Tartary regions as well. That's something Dante talks about in the Infernal. He talks about fire and ice. And yet we see here in Enoch, in the house that Yah built, it is of fire and ice, mutually living together. There were no delights of life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling got hold upon me. And as I quaked and trembled, I fell upon my face. And I beheld a vision, and lo, there was a second house greater than the former, and the entire portal stood open before me, and it was built of flames of fire. And in every respect it so excelled in splendor and magnificence and extent that I cannot describe to you its splendor and its extent. And its floor was of fire, and above it were lightnings, and the path of the stars, and its ceiling also was flaming fire. Can you imagine? Like, guys, fire is hot. Like, can you imagine just being, you see like movies like Backdraft or something like that, and like there's, a firefighter trying to rush into a fire, and there's someone on a floor, and the walls are flame, and the ceiling is flame, and the floor is collapsing all around them, and the fire is coming up from below. I mean, that has to be hot. I mean, that would be melting that person's skin. The extent of damage that it'd be doing. Can you imagine Enoch in this situation? And let me just read here. He says that there were no delights of life therein. What do you make of that? I mean, again, it's just, you're so overcome by this fire that you're in. And so when people are like, concerned about the relatives going into the fire in hell, actually, The only people that are going to be living through eternity in fire are the righteous guys. Those of us who make it into his presence, we're going to be in fire for eternity. And anyways, as floor was of fire, and above it were, okay, and I looked and saw therein a lofty throne. Its appearance was as crystal, and the wheels thereof as the shining sun. And there was a vision of cherubim. And from underneath the throne came streams of flaming fire, so that I could not look thereon. And the great glory sat thereon, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun, and was whiter than any snow. Now, get this here. None of the angels could enter and could behold his face by reason of the magnificence and glory, and no flesh could behold him. The flaming fire was round about him, and a great fire stood before him, and none around could draw nigh him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, yet he needed no counselor. And the most holy ones who were nigh to him did not leave by night, nor depart from him. And until then I had been prostrate on my face, trembling. And Yahuwah called me with his own mouth, and said to me, Come hither, Enoch, and hear my word. And one of the holy ones came to me and waked me, and he made me rise up and approach the door, and I bowed my face downwards. That ends that there, 1 Enoch chapter 10. Isn't that powerful just to hear about? Like, we don't think about this. No, people don't show fire in heaven. They show puffy clouds and light, but it's like, and they always talk about the wicked are going in the fire. It's like, no, the wicked are going to be extinguished in the fire, but the righteous go through it forever. Daniel 7, 9 through 10. I kept looking until thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His garment was white as snow. We just read this in Enoch. And the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was ablaze with flames. Its wheels were a burning fire. A river of fire was flowing and coming out before him. Can you just, I keep saying this, can you imagine like choosing, like you have all these seats, like I'll take the one on fire, and he just goes and sits on a throne of fire. Not only that, the fire flows out from this throne, giving this picture that like you just want to run from the throne. I mean, why would you, like, the fire is coming after you wherever it's on wheels, right? So I guess it's like moving around, and to be able to just to fall down before this throne and the fire is coming at you. Amazing. And of course, Paul, there's no discussion in the Bible complete without throwing Paul into the ring. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Now, if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, each one's work will become evident. Why? Because all those things get burned up in the fire, right? For the day will show it, because it is to be revealed with fire, and the fire itself will test the quality of each one's work. This is good fruit versus, fruitless trees. Classic Hebrew thinking. If anyone's work which he has built on it remains, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved, yet only so as through the fire. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. So, all right. Now there's something else going on here. There's what I call specific divine judgments in his story. It is my thesis that there are certain people that were judged at certain points, and that was it. That was the end of the judgment. Like, they're not necessarily going to be resurrected again to be judged for the very thing they were already judged for. So, for example, the flood generation, those who were killed during Noah's flood, they were judged for their wickedness. There was a literal judgment of all mankind, wiped out, gone. Now, maybe they went into a holding cell in Sheol, but as I've shown in the past, not everyone who goes to Sheol is promised to resurrect. They will just go to Sheol, and then Sheol itself will be thrown into the lake of fire. They're already gone, guys. So there's some people that will resurrect who are so wicked, who got away with it in life, and they're going to get theirs. And I almost get the feeling like it's better to receive your judgment here on this earth than to have to go to Sheol, be tormented in Sheol, and await your torment, right? So here we see Sodom and Gomorrah, and I think that this is the perfect Hebrew thinking example of a rotten tree or a fruitless tree thrown into the fire and burned up, gone. The sun had risen over the earth when Lot came to Zoar. Then Yahuwah rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from Yahuwah out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the surrounding area and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But Lot's wife from behind him looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Now, so we just see here the judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Everybody knows this story. I mean, you know, the LGBTQ communities know this story. It's world renowned. I'm not introducing it to anybody, but look at this. This just, I find this so haunting. This visual, it really sticks to me. Now Abraham got up early in the morning and went to the place where he had stood before Yahweh. This is when he was bartering for the lives there. And he looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the surrounding area. And behold, here's the visual. He saw the smoke of the land ascending like the smoke of a furnace. Can you picture that in your mind? You know, you're on this high place. And if you guys have ever seen a house fire and it's just this thick black smoke, or even a car fire, right? It's just so dark black. And to be able to, you know, to just look out and just see that rising, the smoke of their torment. They're gone. They've been destroyed. Now, unfortunately, some people in Sodom and Gomorrah, for anyone who has done the research on this and seen the stones there, the sulfur stones, like those things, when you light those burn the skin. And they're raining down from heaven. And some people, they probably got taken out right away, right? It was more merciful. Like they just hit them in the head, burn up, they're dead. You know, maybe they didn't even feel it, or maybe it was pretty instantaneous. Some people, unfortunately, were probably, you know, their skin was melting off and it was horrific for some matter of minutes. Point is, by the time Abraham goes there and looks, the cries have ceased, the terror, they're all dead, they're gone. The wicked have been taken out. And they are no more, and he's seeing their smoke rise of their torment. So we see a similar picture that we saw in Genesis 19 in Revelation 14. And it says this, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Elohim, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Now, as soon as you read that, you think, okay, well, angels are eternal. So, and of course, the Lamb is eternal. So they're going to be tormented in fire and brimstone for an eternity. No, actually, it's giving a picture of great shame. Like you are, it's going to be there's numerous passages that talk about this moment of shame. And these are people who were great in the kingdom. These were the people who we look at historically and go, man, this guy had it all together. This guy was amazing. He was a mover and shaker in the church. You know, he was, and we're like, oh, and it's a great shame that now they are in the presence of the very person who really they were rebelling against. And they were leading a movement, an antichrist movement. They were leading one away from the Torah. They were actually leading one in rebellion against the Lamb. And now they have to burn in his presence. And all the holy, the saints and everyone are looking down at them. And it's just, it's humiliating. It's for anyone who is proud, it's the ultimate humiliation. And the smoke of their torment ascends up forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receives the mark of his name. So the idea there of I had a comment there on the no rest, but I actually think that's a picture of course, Sheol, that they actually don't have rest. It's not a restful night's sleep, but the idea of their smoke, Gehenna is not going away. Gehenna continually burns things up. Just right now, it's probably burning something up right now. I don't know what's up there, but it's all eternity. Gehenna will be there. Gehenna was before creation. It will be after, forever and ever. The smoke will rise forever and ever. And of course, this is above the firmament. I don't know if there's some sort of chimney or whatever, but the idea is that above Yah, there's just nothing, right? It just keeps going and going and going. So the idea is the smoke just rises for eternity. There's no end to it. And the ashes with it, I suppose. So let's talk about this again. Some in Sheol have had judgment extended in space-time on the earth. I covered this in past weeks, but for those of you who did not see it, I want you to see it now, or maybe you're having these pieces connected for you for the first time. And then I went to another place. So this is Enoch. He's going to Sheol. He's being carried there by an angel. And he showed me in the west another great and high mountain and of hard rock, and there were 4 hollow places in it. So there are 4 different divisions in Sheol. One of it is for the righteous, 3 are for the sinners. deep and very smooth. 3 of them were dark and 1 bright. So there you go. The bright one is for the righteous. And there was a fountain of water in the midst of the crevice for the righteous. And I said, how smooth are those hollow places and deep and dark to view? Then Raphael, this would be the angel, answered one of the holy angels who was with me and said unto me, these hollow places have been created for this very purpose, that the Ruach of the souls of the dead should assemble therein. So then he asked a question. Enoch says, then I asked regarding all the hollow places, why is one separated from the other? And he answered me saying, these 3 have been made that the Ruach of the dead might be separated. And this division has been made for the Ruach of the righteous, in which there is the bright spring of water. We're not going to talk about that. That's Abraham's bosom. And this has been made for sinners when they die and are buried in the earth, and judgment has not been executed upon them in their lifetime. So there you go. So it's saying that there is a division in Sheol for people who are sinners, who did not get judgment allotted to them in their life. They went to the end of their days, rich, powerful, whatever. Maybe they were taken out by another king, whatever, but it was not like a divine judgment. And here their spirits, their Ruach, shall be set apart in this great pain till the great day of judgment, scourging and torments of the accursed forever. So that doesn't sound like a neat package to me. I would rather, if I were wicked, I would prefer getting judged in this lifetime. But of course, the whole selling point on being wicked is that you're going to get away with it, right? That the righteous are, they're wasting their life because they're going to die. And it's like, why live like that? I'd rather live like a, a jerk off my entire life and live selfishly, because at least I'll get something out of my life, right? Because you're not going to be judged. But it's better to be judged. There is this last one here who, this last one I'd like to talk about. It says that there's a holding cell for spirits in one of the 3, that they shall not be punished in the day of judgment, nor shall they be raised from thence. So it's literally saying that there are souls who, they're not wicked, but they're not righteous. They're just sinners. They live their lives, and they paid their taxes. They maybe had a mortgage. Maybe they sent their kids to college. The dad dances with his daughter at the wedding. They live their life. They weren't horrible people. They were good citizens, and they die, and that's it. That's what that's saying. That's not what Noel is saying. That's what I think this passage is saying. I happen to agree with it. So right here, these people, they're not going to be burning for an eternity in the lake of fire. They will be dumped in the lake of fire, but they're already dead. They go to Sheol, they're dead. They're asleep, never wake up. That's it. It's over for them. They just live their lives. They were just like animals on the earth, and they're not going to be punished for the wickedness of others. But there is a catch to this. I am advocating the annihilation of mortal souls. However, I have a foot in each camp, because I cannot disprove that Satan is not going to burn for eternity. And I'm going to show you a few different sources on this. The first comes from Enoch chapter 21. So we just saw, I think we just read from, okay, this is Enoch 22. So we're going to jump a chapter earlier. The reason I have chapter 20 here is because it's mentioning 7 holy angels, which plays like almost like dualism. It contrasts the 7 evil angels. So we have these here, and there I saw, and I proceeded to where things were chaotic, and I saw there's something horrible. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth. My understanding here is that he has gone beyond the firmament, because there's no heaven above him, which means he cannot be under the firmament. And he's going beyond creation itself. All of creation is under the firmament. He's gone beyond it now. He's gone into this real estate of just chaos and void. He's basically like in Star Trek, guys. He's like in space or wherever, right? He's just out there. And he said, and there I saw 7 stars of the heaven bound together in it, like great mountains and burning with fire. And then I said, for what sin are they bound? And on what account have they been cast in hither? Then Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me and was chief over them, and said, Enoch, why dost thou ask? And it's like, why did you lead me here? But why did you ask? Of course he would ask. And why art thou eager for the truth? That's an interesting question. You ask someone, next time they ask you a question, like, why do you ask? And why are you eager for the truth? These are of the number of the stars of heaven, which have transgressed the commandment of Yahuwah. Uh-oh, guys. I'm telling you, I'm torn on this. I'm torn on this. I don't know what to say to this because there's 7 planets. Okay, the Earth is not a planet. I hope everyone. We do not live on a planet. You don't want to live on a planet. Okay, think about like what the subconsciously what they're telling us when they tell us we live on a planet. You are on a wandering star. You are wandering from the Torah, right? You are wandering from Yah's instructions of righteous living. You don't want to be a planet. You don't want to be inhabiting a planet. And so it's saying that there are these 7 planets, these wandering stars that transgress the commandment of Yahuwah and are bound here till 10,000 years, the time entailed by their sins are consummated. And this is why I'm torn on this, because are these thus 7 planets? Like, is this them? Because I see commentary in other areas where the planets are good. I've seen commentary where the 7 planets represent the menorah, the seven heavens. I mean, we see all sorts of things with the 7, and yet, what have the 7 planets done? They're wandering stars, and they created the entire Copernican revolution. Like you couldn't have heliocentrism without these 7 wandering stars, which came a little bit lower and kind of. You get this idea of like the moon. We'll get there in a few weeks when the moon enlarged herself at Eve's sin. And that's what these wandering stars are doing. They're enlarging themselves for us, and they're showing off. And, look at me. And even without a telescope, you look up in the night sky, and there's Mars, there's Venus, there's Jupiter, and you got your twinkle, twinkle little star, and then you got these bad boys, right? Are these the 7 that he's talking about? Well, it says, I'm getting off topic here. It says, that I went to another place, which was still more horrible than the former. I saw a horrible thing, a great fire which burnt and blazed, and the place was cleft as far as the abyss, being full of great descending columns of fire. Neither its extent or magnitude could I see, nor could I conjecture. Then I said, how fearful is the place, and how terrible to look upon. Then Uriel answered me, one of the holy angels who was with me, and said unto me, Enoch, why is thou such fear and affright? And I answered, because of this fearful place, and because of the spectacle of the pain. And he said to me, this place is the prison of the angels, and here they will be imprisoned forever. So there it is. We have a picture right now where these 7 wandering stars are being tormented. They're rolling around in fire. One of the translations of Enoch actually says that their wives are sirens. Well, what is a siren? Guys, a siren is a female spirit. They could be in the lakes and the rivers. They're commonly seen, in the oceans and the Greek tales like Homer, and they are alluring sailors to their doom on wreckage. Right? They sing these beautiful songs. They're kind of scantily dressed, and the sailors, it drives them mad if they don't go towards them. You've seen the famous picture of Odysseus, and he puts wax in his ears, and he ties himself to the mast. And no, I'm sorry, he doesn't. He has, I think, all his sailors put wax in their ears, and he could hear them, and he's like screaming mad, and they have to keep rowing. But this idea that these 7 planets have wives, and they are luring people to this same fiery doom. Isn't that an interesting picture? And what is the Copernican revolution doing for so many people? All right, so comparing with Enoch 21, we have Jude 1:12. This is talking about those who go the way of Cain and abandon themselves to Balaam's error, and for the sake of gain and perish in Korah's rebellion. Well, let's talk about this really quickly. What was Balaam's error? Well, that was the Old Testament thing. It was Balaam was a wizard who could not curse Israel, but what he could do was he could entice them to sin, to transgress the Torah. Apparently, the spirit of Balaam was still at work in Jude's time. He didn't get the memo that the Torah was done away with, apparently. And of course, Korah's rebellion, what was that? It was rebelling against the Torah. And Korah's rebellion was going on in Jude's day. Isn't that interesting? Well, he says this. He says they are wandering stars. That's not a compliment, right? They are anyone who who rebels against the Torah, the commands, they are wandering stars. They are no longer on the path. They are no longer on the way. We all have this. We are to be like the stars, right? That's continued throughout Scripture. We are the promise that we will be like the stars in heaven, but not everybody, not if you're a wandering star, for whom the deepest darkness has been reserved forever. Jude 1:12. I will point out really quickly that in the Hebrew Jude, that line is taken out, the wandering stars. I was bummed to see it taken out. That being said, it was just one document. I mean, we do have different documents in history that they will have a little line taken out here and there. So that does not in the case for me that Hebrew Jude should not have the wandering star segment in there, especially since he is quoting from Enoch so often in this book. Thematically, it only makes sense that he's quoting from the passage we just looked at. Revelation 20:10 says this, and the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. It's hard to read that in any other light. I mean, this isn't talking about people. This is talking about the dragon, the same one who was the serpents in Eden and did what he did with Eve and then Adam and had him cast out and has deceived the nations. The same one who is deceiving the world now. He's going to be tormented day and night forever and ever. It's hard for me to feel bad for the guy, to be honest. Like, it really is. People, it's different. People who are deceived, it's a different story. But Satan is not deceived. He is the deceiver. He is purposely going out and lying to us, doing great destruction to the soul. So, again, annihilationists, many annihilationists will go, no. Even Satan's going to be annihilated. I guess I have a foot in each camp here. I do believe that the human soul will be annihilated. I don't see evidence for Hasatan and his angels that they will be thrown into the lake of fire and burned forever. All right, so we see here, this is 1 Enoch Chen. All right, so I'm not going to read this whole thing. This is the binding of Azazel. And on the day of the great judgment, he shall be cast into the fire. Now, you guys know that I think Azazel is the same Hasatan that we talk about. There's actually 5 major Satans in the book of Enoch. But it appears to me, I've made the case that Azazel is the one that happened to deceive Eve and Adam. And he's the one that carries on to the very end. He becomes the dragon. And he's the one that, that Yah attributed all sin onto Azazel. Even over all the other watchers, there were 200 of them, Sam Jazza, there were others. They all did terrible things, but he said all sin, the sin of the watchers will be put onto Azazel. And it's the same thing, of course, with humanity. The sins of humanity is put on Azazel. It says, on the day of the great judgment, he shall be cast into fire, skipping down here. And it says, in those days, they shall be lit off. Okay, so this is talking about when, in those days, they shall be led off to the abyss of fire and to the torment and the prison in which they shall be confined forever. And I think that's talking about the end of time. It says, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. 1 Enoch chapter 10. Here's another one from Matthew 25. This one's a pretty popular passage, obviously. Then he will also say to those on his left, depart from me, you accursed people. And what's on his left, right? There's paradise and there's Gehenna. Depart from me to my left into the eternal fire, which has been prepared for who? For the devil and his angels. It's interesting. It was never prepared for us, interestingly enough. These will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Matthew 25. Matthew 26 says this, the Son of Man is going away just as it is written about him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born. What do you guys think that means? It's pretty intense. The Sibylline Oracle says this, of the heavenly and immortal God shall drive against a pillar where shall all around in a circle flow a restless stream of fire and deathless angels of the immortal God. Whoever is shall bind with lasting bonds. So again, right there, that's interesting that they are specifying in the Sibylline Oracles that there are deathless angels, as opposed to men who can die. The angels, for whatever reason, are deathless. And maybe that's also another attraction of pre-existence. I know I shouldn't be jumping around too much tonight, because I do think that humanity was, we're the sons of God in heaven. Maybe that's part of the attraction to coming down to earth. And, even if you don't make the cut, it's almost like, you guys ever see, probably shouldn't refer to this movie. This just came to my mind, but Escape from LA, with Snake Plissken. And he's on his way to LA, and they're offering the people there, look, if you don't want to go on to the LA prison, we will execute you right here on the spot. We will help you in suicide. And you see all these people dying. I could see a situation like that where it's like, okay, you could, because of your transgression, you could burn for eternity in this fire with Satan and his angels. You could go that route, or you could take this chance of living your life down on the earth. Of course, you're going to lose all memory, and you're going to have to navigate through just lies and lies and lies and propaganda. And all these people, all these spiritual terrors, these controllers over you, they're going to tell you not to be obedient to me. They're going to spend their whole lives saying it is God's will that you not be obedient to him, and Satan wants you to be obedient. It's incredible, but that's actually the truth in churches. And the thing is if you don't make the cut, you'll just be annihilated. You see what I'm saying? Maybe that's part of the attraction. I don't really know. I would take that over having to be burned for an eternity. Resets, the 7 days of primeval silence in the Millennial Kingdom leading into the MK. Oh yeah, that's why I want to end this tonight. I want to show passages of the Millennial Kingdom. So because I covered this last week, so I'm not going to go over this. I don't need to go over this again. Maybe I can end on that if there's time. But let's talk about really quickly the end and destruction of the wicked, and then we're going to talk about the Millennial Kingdom and the number of prophetic passages that talk about this fire event that comes down that brings in the Millennial Kingdom. Sirach 19 says, decaying worms will take possession of him, the wicked man, and the reckless person will be snatched away. It's always the wicked people, guys. I mean, all you need to do is read Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who delights in the Torah of Yahweh and meditates on that Torah day and night. He will be like a tree planted by the water. The wicked are not so. They will be like the chaff that the wind blows away, right? It's always the wicked that are blown away. It's those who are who receive the blessing through their faithfulness that will remain here on this earth. The angels are coming to take the tares. It's the opposite of the rapture story. Like the people who all the people waiting to be raptured, it's like, no, you don't want to be the people that are like, believe me, you do not want to be the people that are getting raptured. All right, you want to remain behind. Don't get taken. Sirach 21. Those who build their houses with other people's money are like those who gather stones for their own burial mounds. An assembly of the lawless is like a bundle of tinder, and their end is a blazing fire. The way of sinners is paved with smooth stones, but at its end is the pit of Hades. So again, it's talking about their end, right? This isn't a new beginning. It's the end. End of story. Over. In the fire. Sirach 36 says, let survivors be consumed in the fiery wrath, and may those who harm your people meet destruction. Baruch 4. Your enemy has overtaken you, but you will soon see their destruction and will tread upon their necks. That's probably actually a Millennial Kingdom passage right there. Yeah, I mean, again, this is talking about one of those Sodom and Gomorrah type events that they're going to be judged in life, and you will literally step on their necks. Like you're going to walk out there, they're dead. You're going to see it happen. This passage is from Jeremiah 51. This is what Yahweh of army says. The broad wall of Babylon will be completely demolished, and her high gates will be set on fire, so the peoples will labor for nothing, and the nations become exhausted only for fire. It's literally saying that the Gentiles will be fuel for the fire. You, Yahweh, have promised concerning this place to cut it off, so that there will be nothing living in it, whether man or animal, but it will be a permanent desolation. Now, this is talking to the king of Babylon. And so we see that today in Babylon. Babylon is still, to this day. There was a guy, an archaeologist, he just went over to Babylon just in the last year or something like that. And he was doing a video on it, and he sees these jackals and these other animals just running in front of the camera. He's like, I can't believe this. These are the actual animals that describe that would inhabit this forever. That's what we see. Babylon has never been rebuilt. It's gone. It's done. It's over. Permanent desolation. Here's one from Baruch 4, and I ask you to compare this with Jeremiah 51. Take courage, O Jerusalem, for the one who named you will comfort you. Wretched will be those who mistreated you and who rejoiced at your fall. This is talking, of course, about the Babylonians, right? They were rejoicing at the fall, and actually Edom and some of the other groups. It says, for fire will come upon her from the everlasting for many days. For a long time she will be inhabited by demons. This is talking about the same thing with Babylon, right? So again, people read this and go, oh, they're burning up for eternity. No. When you compare this right up here with Jeremiah 51, it's very, very straightforward. The land itself, it is desolate. It's inhabited by demons. But is there still fire on Babylon today? No, it's not. It's not. Like the fire came, it destroyed it. It's over. You see here, I had a couple passages. This obviously is not my latest draft because I actually removed those. First Maccabees 2:61 through 64. And so observe from generation to generation that none of those who put their trust in him will lack strength. Do not fear the words of sinners, for their splendor will turn into dung and worms. That's another Sheol passage. Today they will be exalted, but tomorrow they will not be found, for they will have returned to the dust, and their plans will have perished. I think you guys get the point with these. I'm not going to read all through those. Let's talk about Messianic judgment, because I think this is what's really going to have a lot of people's interest. I think the point has been made that the Hebrew idea of shame is to have like your inheritance completely cut off, to just to be just completely destroyed. Like that's the shame within the Hebrew culture that they're talking about. Messianic judgment, the end of the wicked before the millennial kingdom. So there's a lot of we're only on page 32, guys. You can see there's 83 pages. We're not getting through this tonight. I could probably split this up over 2 weeks. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but think about all the hours that I spent preparing this, that half of it's not even going to be shown. Such a shame. Messianic judgments. I see a lot within the Tartaria talk and the reset talk about this. There was this big fire reset event kind of recently, and the evidence in scripture says the complete opposite to me. If we believe that the millennial kingdom has come, it was a physical manifestation on the earth. Again, some of people are watching this video going like, what is this guy talking about? The fire event came first. The earth was scorched before it came down. It wasn't afterwards. We don't see that afterwards. We see it beforehand. Well, this is Psalm 1 right here, which I quoted from earlier. And this, I love this. Should be my theme chapter. Blessed is the person who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh, and on his Torah he meditates day and night. Now, is this no longer true? Is God's word no longer true? Is this outdated, out-fashioned? Yah has now broken his promise. This is no longer a blessing. You are no longer blessed if you delight in the Torah and meditate on a day and night. Think about what you're saying out there. For those of you who are like, Noel just, he's a Judaizer, and he talks about like the 99% of the Bible we're not supposed to talk about. It's like, why go around and beat people over the head with the Bible and tell them to believe in something and go, yeah, not all of that's not true anymore. It's not applicable. Did God really say? Did he really say that you would be blessed if you delighted in the Torah day and night? Well, let's see what it says. And he will be like a tree planted by streams of water. That's a promise that we're given. If you delight in meditating in the Torah, you will be like a tree planted by streams of water. Promise from the Lord, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and whatever he does, he prospers. That's talking about the tree of life right there. And the Torah is the tree of life. The wicked are not so, but they are like the chaff which the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. And this is why I put this in here. This is a messianic passage. And I've seen other people, the rabbis, the rabbinical culture, they say this is a messianic passage for the coming of his kingdom. For Yahuwah knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. Psalm 1. Psalm 2. You shall break them with the rod of iron. Well, who comes to rule with the rod of iron, guys? Yeshua does. Yahuwah. You shall shatter them like earthenware. Now then, you kings, use insight. Let yourselves be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve Yahuwah with reverence and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son that he be not angry, and you perish on the way. Did it just say that Yahuwah was the Son? I think it did. For his wrath may be kindled quickly. How blessed are all who take refuge in him, in Yahuwah. But just before Tobit died, let's see, but this is obviously coming from Tobit. I don't have time to read all this. Let's read the end here. This is what he says for the coming kingdom. All who love Elohim with their heart and soul will rejoice. But all sinners and evil people will be wiped off the face of the earth. Tobit chapter 14. This is the Sibling Oracles, chapter 4. Ye all will practice honored piety, but if ill-disposed, ye obey me not. But with a fondness for strange lack of sense, receive all these things with an evil ear. There shall be over all the world a fire. So this is, of course, talking about the big fire event that I believe happened in like 536. This came over the whole world as a judgment. And greatest omen with sword and with trump at sunrise, the whole world shall hear the roar and mighty sound, and he shall burn all earth and destroy the whole race of man, and all the cities and the rivers and the sea. And things he'll burn, and it shall be black dust. But when now all things shall have been reduced to dust and ashes, and God shall have calmed the fire unspeakable which he lit up, the bones and ashes of men God himself again will fashion, and he will again raise mortals up, even as they were before. And then shall be the judgment at which God himself is judge, shall judge the whole world again. So is that saying there that well, yeah, that's kind of interesting, because I mean that going by that passage right there in the Sibling Oracles, it makes it out like only the righteous, like everyone dies, everybody, and just the righteous are resurrected. But that actually goes to go with that translation alone or interpretation would go against other passages in the Sibling Oracles, which makes it out like there are human survivors, and of course the righteous are going to rule over them. All right, Psalm of Solomon 3. When was the last time you read a Psalm of Solomon? The righteous continually searcheth his house to remove utterly all iniquity done by him in error. He maketh atonement for sins of ignorance by fasting and afflicting his soul. And Yahuwah counteth guiltless every pious man in his house. The sinner stumbleth and curseth his life. The day when he was begotten in his mother's travail, he addeth sins to sins, which he liveth. He falleth very grievous to his fall, and riseth no more. The destruction of the sinner is forever. So there you go. And this is where I was kicking myself earlier for not bringing in Wisdom of Solomon, because it made that very clear. The soul is mortal. Only the righteous become immortal, but the destruction of the wicked is forever. So the destruction of the sinner is forever, and he shall not be remembered when the righteous is visited. This is the portion of sinners forever. Psalm of Solomon 3. All right, so now coming into, this is, I think, 2nd Esdras. Yep, 2nd Esdras chapter 7. Then the world shall be turned back to primeval silence for 7 days, as it was at the first beginning, so that no one shall be left. So that I guess they're right there. Apparently, according to this, everyone's going to die too. I skipped that section when I talked about the primeval silence, and some of you will recall I went over that last week, where there was the silence before Genesis 1:2 over the whole earth. There was the silence at the beginning of the Millennial Kingdom, and then there's the other primeval silence at the end of the little season, which we haven't got to yet. Apparently everyone dies. Like, we're all going to go through the fire, guys. After 7 days, the world that is not yet awake shall be roused, and that which is corruptible shall perish. So that's interesting. 7 days. It's another creation week right here. And then it says this: the pits of torment shall appear, and opposite it shall be the place of rest. Where did we read that? Gehenna and paradise. Garden of Eden, right next to each other, left and right. So they're both appearing, and the furnace of Gehenna shall be disclosed, and opposite it the paradise of delight. Then the Most High will say to the nations that have been raised from the dead, look now and understand whom you have denied, whom you have not served, whose commandments you have despised. I think he's speaking there to the wicked and saying, look, these are the people that you hated these people. You hated them because they kept these commandments and they were loyal to me. And look at now what they're getting and look what you're going to get. All right, and then it ends, I will not grieve. Oh, yeah. So also will be the judgment that I have promised, for I will rejoice over the few who shall be saved, because it is they who have made my glory to prevail now. So what happens here is that Ezra he's like, how can you be so cruel? I mean, he's really challenging here. Like, how can you be so happy that so many people are going to be thrown into the lake of fire and destroyed, and only a few are going to survive? And he says, I will not grieve over the great number of those who perish. For it is they who are now like a mist and are similar to a flame and smoke. They are set on fire and burn hotly and are extinguished. They're gone. 2nd Ezra chapter 7. And this is why, like our God, Elohim, he is slow to anger and he is merciful. He wishes none to perish. And can you imagine a situation where like he wishes none to perish, but he's like, you're going to burn forever. I don't wish for you to perish, but you're going to burn forever. But it's like, no, like it's going to be a very, I think there'll be a mixed emotions, because I think some of it will be celebration. Like, yeah, that dude, I won't say names on here so I don't get further shadow ban. I already am. But you guys can all picture in your head some very evil elite people. And like these people destroyed the lives of so many individuals. Like, I'm so glad that justice has come to them. Finally, justice is coming. But there's going to be others where we're going to recognize them and they're going to be loved ones, and it's going to be sorrowful. I think this is why he's going to have to wipe every tear from our eyes and be like, okay, you're not going to cry anymore. It's done. It's over. I think a lot of us are going to be crying to see just individuals that we know thrust in. It's going to be very, very hard to watch. So this passage comes from the Assumption of Moses, chapter 10. For the Most High will arise, the eternal Elohim alone, and he will appear to punish the Gentiles, and he will destroy all their idols. And it says, and they shall be ended, the Gentiles. There will be no more. They chose not to be grafted in. And you will look from on high and see your enemies in Gehenna, and you shall recognize them and rejoice. Now keep in mind, I just talked about the mixed bag, right? There's a lot of passages where it talks about rejoicing, but this is talking about straight up enemies. Like, these are the people who were they hated us. They made our lives miserable because we just wanted to obey our Creator. That's all we wanted to do. We just wanted to serve him. And the whole time people are just, their eyes are pressed on us. The steamroller weight of their eyes. You could feel the darkness pressed on you. And it's like, yeah, I'm glad you're gone, because now I could actually go about doing this and I don't have to, have you do this to me anymore. First Enoch 45 says, such shall be the lot of the sinners who have denied the name of Yahuwah of Ruachoth, who are thus preserved for the day of suffering and tribulation. So that's what you see right there with Sheol. It actually preserves people for that time. Not all of them, though. And I will cause mine elect ones to dwell upon it, but the sinners and evildoers shall not set foot therein. I shall destroy them from the face of the earth. First Enoch 45. Let me read this in First Enoch 98. And now know ye that ye are prepared for the day of destruction. Wherefore do not hope to live, ye sinners, but ye shall depart and die. For ye know no ransom. For ye are prepared for the day of the great judgment, for the day of tribulation and great shame for your spirits. And there's that phrase again, great shame. It's a day of great shame. It's not an eternity of great shame. It's a singular day. Therefore they shall have no peace. They shall have no shalom. Because they've taken on, they're like the Azazel goat. The Azazel goat is one who wanders. He has no peace. He's not obedient to the will of the Father. He cannot stay with the shepherd. He's walking off his own way. Therefore, they shall have no peace, but die a sudden death. Verse Enoch 98. Verse Enoch 48 says, and I will give them over into the hands of mine elect, a straw in the fire, so shall they burn before the face of the holy. As lead in the waters shall they sink before the face of the righteous, and no trace of them shall any more be found. I mean, so to me that says that you can't go to the lake of fire and say, oh, there's a cousin Bert down there. Like, no, there's no trace of him left. He's gone. And on the day of their affliction there shall be rest on the earth, and before them they shall fall and not rise again. So this is the judgment. I think that this rest on the earth is talking about the millennial kingdom, the end of days, which we're well beyond at this point. And those people who were destroyed, they will not rise again. That's it. They're gone. Wiped out. Verse Enoch 27 says, this accursed valley is for those who are accursed forever. Here shall all the accursed be gathered together, who utter with their lips against Yahuwah unseemly words, and of his glory speak hard things. Here shall they be gathered together, and here shall be the place of their habitation. Now, so I put the question here, judgment of everlasting destruction or conscious pain forever. See First Enoch 108. Let's see, do I put that right here? So, okay, so this is Enoch's entire worldview condensed and explained right here. That's what I wrote. So let's see if it pans out my previous thoughts. Another Sefer, which Enoch wrote for his son Methuselah and for those who will come after him and keep the Torah in the last days. So this is telling you who the book of Enoch is written for. It's not written for all the people who don't keep the Torah. If you want to be obedient to the Torah of Yahuwah, this book is for you. Ye who have done good shall wait for those days till an end is made of those who work evil, and an end of the might of the transgressors. That's what we're all waiting for, right? We're waiting for the end to come. And wait ye indeed till sin has passed away, for their name shall be blotted out of the Sefer of life. We see that in Revelation. And out of the holy Sephers, and their seed shall be destroyed forever, and their spirits shall be slain. Their very spirits are slain. And they shall cry and make lamentation in a place that is a chaotic wilderness. And in the fire shall they burn, for there is no earth there. So that seems to be, if I sum up everything Enoch believes, yes, they're going to burn in the fire. It's going to suck. There is torment. It hurts to be burned alive, but it's not going to last forever. It could be seconds. It could be minutes. It could be hours. I don't really know. But it's not eternal. Isaiah 66. This is a great passage. This is the, day of the Lord passage. This is the entryway of the millennial kingdom. And it says, then they will go out and look at the corpses of the people who have rebelled against me. These are the Gentiles. Or what they would say in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the sons of darkness, of Belial. For the worm will not die, and their fire will not be extinguished, and they will be an abhorrence to all mankind. Isaiah 66. So what I want to do is compare this with the War Scroll column 18. Now, if you remember, the Sons of Light versus Sons of Darkness, did a whole presentation on this. There's 6 battles that are fought over a 33-year war between the Sons of Light versus Sons of Darkness. The Sons of Light is Israel rising up all over the earth to fight against the Gentiles and bring in the millennial kingdom. And it's 3 wins, 3 losses. So it's like a stalemate. And it takes then Yahuwah personally coming in, Yahushua HaMashiach, personally coming in and settling the score. And so this is what happens. This is Isaiah 66 all over again. Then shall they gather in the camp that night for rest until the morning. In the morning they shall come to the place of the battle line where the mighty men of the Kittim fell. That'd be like the Romans, Greeks, as well as the multitude of Assyria, and the forces of all the nations that were assembled unto them, to see whether the multitude is slain or dead, with none to bury them, those who fell by the sword of Elohim. The same thing happened in Isaiah 37, if you recall, when the angel came and slayed all the people. Then the angel of Yahuwah went out and struck 185,000 in the camp. Now, I know that number is debated. Some people say it wasn't that high, but this is what a lot of Bible translations say. A lot of people died in the camp of the Assyrians. And when the rest got up early in the morning, behold, all of the 185,000 were dead. So it's the same picture of the entryway into the millennial kingdom, where the people go to bed at night and they wake up and Yah has literally fought the battle for them. And he has just destroyed the enemy, and they are no more. They are annihilated. Those put to death by Yahuwah on that day will be from one end of the earth to the other. They will not be mourned, gathered, or buried. They will be like dung on the face of the ground. Jeremiah 25:33. Now scrolling back up here because I skipped this. Malachi 4. You know I can't skip this. For this again, this is the day of the Lord, entryway of the millennial kingdom, the big fire melting event. For behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven, when all the arrogant and all evildoers will be stubble. The day that is, again, you can't be conscious stubble. Like, the day that is coming shall set them ablaze, says Yahuwah of hosts, so that it will leave them neither root nor branch, not even in eternity. Just nothing, gone. Before you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. And I love this picture. This is so beautiful. You shall go out leaping like calves from the stall. And this is actually talking about the ashes of Gehenna. Like the people who of this generation, whether it's our generation, future generation, or a past generation, this is my thesis, that they woke up that morning and the armies of Belial, the Gentiles all over the earth were just eliminated. And they were surrounded this camp of Yah. And they go out there and they're just like these calves, these baby cows. You see them dancing on the field and they're just joyous on the ashes of their enemies. And you shall tread down the wicked, for they will be ashes under the soles of your feet on the day when I act, says Yahuwah of hosts. Of course, what does ashes give us a picture of? They were all scorched in fire, right? And here's the kicker here. Remember the Torah of my servant Moshe. You could, say, well, it's the law. It's the law. No, actually, it's the law of Christ, yes, but it's the law of Moshe. Remember the Torah of my servant Moshe, the statutes and rules that I commanded him at Horeb for all Yasharel. For all time, for all Yasharel, going up to this fire event, which is way past the cross of Christ. Behold, I will send you Elijah or Eliyahu, the prophet, before the great and awesome day of Yahuwah comes. Before the day of the Lord, Elijah will come, and he will tell us to remember the Torah, because if you do not remember the Torah and if you're not obedient to it, you will end up like those people that they're going to be dancing over under ashes. So just remember that. All right. Man, I have so much material here. Wisdom of Solomon 3 says, oh, I love this. In the time of their visitation, they will shine forth and will run like sparks through the stubble. So remember how I said we're all going to be passing the fire. Well, the resurrected are now these candle, these flames. They're just these glowing, flaming, sun-like people running to and fro over the earth, and they're running over the stubble. Both people pass through the flames, but only the righteous were the goal that made it through. Wisdom of Solomon 4 says, after this they will become dishonored corpses and an outrage among the dead forever, because he will dash them speechless to the ground and shake them from the foundations. They will be left utterly dry and barren, and they will suffer anguish, and the memory of them will perish. Wisdom of Solomon 4. Now, again, remember, just for those of you who are still hanging on to eternal torment, we have many passages where it says that the righteous will go and see the wicked being tormented. They will see them in the fire, but the memory is going to perish, meaning that they will no longer, you can't just go there after a certain extent of time. You go there 10 years later and go, where's cousin Bert? Oh, he was extinguished. He's gone. The memory of him, it's gone. He's perished. Isaiah 11:4. I'm going to cut into this soon and we'll come to a conclusion, because I could just keep going on and on and on with these passages. And he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. This comes from Isaiah 33. You have now I will arise, says Yahweh. Now I will be exalted. Now I will be lifted up. You have conceived chaff, Psalm 1 right here. You will give birth to stubble. My breath will consume you like a fire. The peoples will be burned to lime, like cut thorns which are burned in the fire. Who among us can live with the consuming fire? Who among us can live with everlasting burning? You can't. The answer is you can't. You die. Unless if you're righteous. And then you could dance over Gehenna. We see further passages here. This one, 2nd Baruch 82, says, they are like a vapor. They will be made like a drop. They will be reckoned like spittle. As smoke, they will pass away. Like grass which is withering, they will fade away. They will be broken like a passing wave. As a passing cloud, they will vanish. You guys getting the picture by this time? 2nd Baruch 85 says, there is the proclamation of judgment to corruption regarding the way to the fire and the path that leads to the glowing coals. Therefore, there is one Torah, by one world, and an end for all those who exist. Then he will make alive those whom he has found, and he will purge them from sins, and at the same time he will destroy those who are polluted with sins. Because there is only one Torah, guys. All right. So here's some passages on Messiah that I'll read. I'll probably end on this tonight. I have a few more minutes before we close shop. Matthew chapter 3. He says, and the axe is already laid at the root of the trees. Therefore, every tree that does not bear good fruit is being cut down and thrown into the fire. So we saw that in the Aramaic Targum in Genesis 1. He will gather his wheat into the barn, but he will burn up the chaff with unquenchable fire. Matthew chapter 3. So anyone who says, you fool, shall be guilty enough to go into the fiery Gehenna. That's Matthew 5. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into Gehenna. It is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to go into Gehenna. Now, interestingly enough, I had I call it an argument. It was really him asking questions and me just answering them. When people, they get all upset at me in person, and I just say, look, you're asking me questions right now. Would you like me to answer these questions? And they're like, well, can you? And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I'll answer your questions the best of my ability, but just so you know, you're asking the questions, and I'm just going to answer them, all right? That's all that's happening here. And, the more questions they ask, it's like, it's like Daffy Duck or something. They just get, Elmer Fudd. They keep getting more and more frustrated. And I remember this one came up in one of them. And for some reason, the Torah was really bothering them because they were being convicted and they knew that there was judgment for those who didn't keep it. And he's like, are you telling me that you take this literally? And he brought this up in Matthew 5. You take this literally that you really should cut off a part of your body or, at the threat of being thrown in Gehenna? I'm like, yes, I believe that. He's like, well, why don't you go cut off your hand then? And I'm like, let's look at this scenario. Like when you're thrown in Gehenna someday, if assuming that happens, let's hope it doesn't happen. Let's assume you're that moment you're being thrown into Gehenna, and it's for a sin of you did something with your hand, right? You murdered someone, you touched some guy's wife, or whatever it is, right? And this is in your mind, and you think, man, wouldn't it have been better for me to have this hand cut off and never commit that sin, and enter eternity maimed and with one less limb than for to have my whole body go into Gehenna? Yeah, I think he's speaking literally here. I think he's speaking literally. Like if you knew how bad this judgment was, if you truly believe this judgment, like this is how serious you would take it. Like you're going to eternity with like 2 less feet and 2 less hands if it comes down to it. That's how serious this is. We all need to take this seriously. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. This is the words of our master again in Matthew 7. And he says here, the second death, Matthew 10:28. I started out reading this. Do not be afraid of those who could kill the body but are unable to kill the soul. These are all your tormentors and accusers and so on and so forth. But rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in Gehenna. That's 2 deaths I'm reading, the first and second death right there. All right, you guys get the picture there. See how I'm scrolling through? I have so much material and I can't cover it all. It's the painful thing to like dig all this stuff up for you guys. And all right, I'm going to actually end there tonight. I'm going to end early. Let me just end on Matthew 25. Then he will also say to those on his left, depart from me, you accursed people. Did I read this earlier? Into the eternal fire. Remember, so he's before the throne, right to paradise, left is Gehenna, which he has departed, which he has prepared for the devil and his angels, which is sad. It wasn't technically prepared for you, though maybe it was. Maybe if it was, if we're all sons of Elohim who were deceived by Satan and fell. For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger and you did not invite me in, naked and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison and you did not visit me. By the way, that's all Torah, baby. That's all of it. Like that's you want to conform to the mind of Yah, right? And these are always the things that's on his mind, right? The poor, the destitute, the hungry, the widows, the orphans. These are the things that, like, if you come into this earth, like he wants to see you make a difference. He doesn't want to see. He's not going to say, come into paradise because you spent your whole life on Facebook and social media arguing with people about whether or not the millennial kingdom happened or whether or not the earth is flat. Yeah, just come on in. Yeah, you did nothing good. You did nothing to take care of the sick. You did nothing to help me out. You just argued the whole time. Come on into eternity so you can continue arguing with us. Then they themselves also will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or as a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you? Then he will answer them, truly I say to you, to the extent that you did not do it for one of the least of these, you did not do it for me either. These will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So there's one of the perplexing things about this here, Matthew 25, is that I'm not a universalist, but I do hold to this idea because, I come down a lot about, the Torah, right? And my desire is for everybody to take responsibility for your own spiritual lives and to fight against the controllers over you who tell you to not be obedient and start being obedient. All right. That is my desire for everybody. That being said, I do think that there are many people all over the earth who are going to be surprised that they did not know who Messiah was. And they're going to enter eternity and they're going to be like, I don't even know who you are. Like, why am I coming into your eternal realm? And he's like, well, don't you remember? You were clothing me. You were feeding me. Oh, you're doing all these amazing things. And you have my heart. You have ignorance, arrogance, whatever. You were deceived. You were lied to. You were, all these things, all this propaganda against me. But you actually had my heart. And I want you to enter my kingdom. And then you're going to have all these other people who they were just tight, right? They just, Jesus is their homeboy. Like they wear the T-shirts and the hats and, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, I don't want you in my presence. Like, I don't want to spend eternity with you. You can leave. I'm going to end on that note. So we're going to be continuing going through Genesis chapter 1. I'm going to be bouncing around a little bit. Next week, the plan is to go over the firmament. The firmament's going to take 2 weeks because I want to do 1 week just on the firmament itself. And this will be a bit exoteric. I know a lot of you was like, oh, no, this is so 2015, but there's a lot of people out there discovering the flat earth, and I want to cover it. And then I'll do another week on the 7 firmaments of heaven. And then in a couple of weeks, I'll be talking about pre-existence. I'll be talking about the Ruach HaKodesh, going over the waters, talking about a lot of stuff. I also want to cover the idea of a potential a matrix-like situation. And there are some passages that may cover that. And that's just the first 3 or 4 verses of chapter 1. It's going to take us several weeks to get through that. And we'll do this again. Love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making this a tradition in your home. All praise and glory to Yah. I hope and pray that there are people who come here who their lives are changed and that they are encouraged and strengthened to take this journey, to flee the city of destruction, to take the ancient path, to follow the way of Yahuwah. And just, you guys, you know what? If there's someone out there, I feel like someone needs to hear this right now. Like, if you don't know what to do and you're like, oh my goodness, the whole Bible is true. Like, it is the most ridiculous thought that 99% of it. We're supposed to tell people it's true, but none of it is true anymore. And none of those promises ring true. And that none of those blessings are now curses. Like, that's the most ridiculous thing. And you realize, oh my goodness, the whole Bible is true. And Yah is true. And let every man, let Yah be true and every man a liar, right? And what do you do now? Just start keeping the Sabbath, guys. Just start keeping the Sabbath. And that's the fourth commandment. Read the fourth commandment. What does it say to do every 7 days? Stop working, rest, spend, let no one in your household work. And that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. So this is, of course, Friday night. We're going into our Sabbath. Tomorrow's our day of just shackles, where we don't have to work and we get to rest, and I get to read and just learn more about Yah, spend time with my family. I'm going on a bike ride through the woods. It's going to be a lot of fun. Anyways, love you guys. We'll do this again next week. If I can stop this. I actually can't stop this tonight.